How many times, Janna, should I allow someone to, hurt my feelings or be disrespectful, before I end the relationship? One. And I don't mean they get one chance, but nope. You did me in a way I would never do you. Not for me. Why not? Why are you supposed to be so forgiving in the sense of just letting someone do that to you and then they get that free pass, right? They get that free pass. You give them another chance, they're going to do it again. You know why? Because you didn't set that boundary. Set the boundary. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? I want to talk today about settling in relationships. Settling in relationships isn't just with romance, right? This is also with your friends, business partners, maybe even family. It is just when you settle, when you put up with crap you shouldn't put up with. How many of you are doing that right now? And then how many of you are giving yourself or that person an excuse as to why it's okay, right? And that's what we do. We got this little game in our head that we do, right? And if you're with a narcissist, they've already turned the tables on you and made you believe that you're the reason for all their disrespectful and shitty wrongdoings to you, right? So recently I had someone very near and dear come to me and we had this discussion. And, I like to just be a listener. I think that's why we got two ears and one mouth. And, I prefer for a person to ask me what my opinion is or what I would do, especially when it comes to something like that, because it's already a big deal for someone to open up about their private life. And, you always want to keep continuing to create that safe space. And that's the reason they talk to you. And, this person's a little younger. And I was very well aware of what this person's partner was doing. And so, when a few other things were said to me about the relationship and asked what would I do, my first response was, well, I think that you know what you need to do. And oftentimes we ask other people, what would you do? How would you handle this? And when it comes to asking that question about a relationship where we know that person has fucked up or we know that person doesn't deserve us anymore, we don't really need anyone else's opinion. We know what we need to do. We just want confirmation, we want validation. We want someone else to say, heck yeah, I'd break up. In some way, it makes us feel better, right? It pushes us. But you don't need that. And if you are struggling with a toxic relationship of any sorts, or you're just settling, just know that you're not responsible for that person's wrongdoings and shitty behavior, but you are responsible for putting up with it. You are responsible for keeping it in your life. But here's the other thing. If you find yourself constantly with these kind of people who are just subpar, they treat you in a manner you would never treat them, that is a reflection on the relationship you have with your own self. The first and most important relationship in our lives is the one that we have with our very own self. When you heal that relationship with yourself and you do the inner work, it heals all other relationships in your life, the ones that are worth keeping. And it shines a light on the toxic, subpar relationships in your life. Because once you do the inner work and you have an amazing relationship with yourself, you don't allow anything less than in your life. And too many people these days, they just are too hard on themselves. They haven't done the inner work. They have these insecurities, these fears, and they continue to look for someone else to make that go away, to fulfill that void one after another. And then when a relationship ends or it doesn't go right, they blame themselves. Well, I'm not good enough, or if I could have just done this, and you know what? What is the point in that? What is the point in beating yourself up? No, if you want to ask yourself questions, start asking yourself, why do I put up with this shit? Why do I allow someone to treat me in a way I would never treat them? Now let's talk about that question for a minute. That was the question I was asked the other night by this someone who I'm telling you about. And I said, it's really, really hard when people treat us poorly or they do something to us really hurtful, and we wouldn't do that to them. Now, we're not all the same, but we all know what respect is. We all know what love is. And it really sucks when someone hurts you or they don't do something or they're just mean to you, and yet they tell you they love you. And inside, you know how shitty it feels. And you're like, I would never, ever do that to them. But here's the thing. A lot of the times you just brush it off, right? You don't stop and think, hey, maybe there's somebody else out there that also would never do me this way. Maybe there's someone who's just like me, who they're just like, I would never treat that person that way. I would never treat anyone I love that way, much less someone I don't care for. If you think it, someone else does too. I learned that in life. If you wouldn't do someone that way, if you are putting up with shit you shouldn't have to put up with, there is somebody else better than the person you're with that feels the same way you do. I promise you that. But you can't find that person and attract that person when you're settling over here for the mediocre bullshit. That person that's treating you disrespectful and you're like, gosh, I would never do them that way. Guess what? They're not going to treat you any better ever. They're always going to have an excuse as to, well, I was just in a bad mood, or I was having a bad day, or, I just, I didn't see how I was rude or disrespectful. I didn't know it was that big of a deal. I didn't know it'd bother you. Those are really big pet peeves of mine. When people have no accountability, no empathy, and they literally will be disrespectful to you and then say, oh, I didn't know, or it was just a joke. I didn't know you'd be so offended. Fuck that. You did know. That's what you intended to happen. But now you don't want to accept responsibility. So you're going to turn it on me and make me feel like I was too sensitive or, just not in a good enough mood to just be like, ha ha ha, that's funny. It's so funny when you're mean to me, right? Think about the amount of shit you put up with every single day, right? Think about the amount of stuff that is said to you, that you see, that you read, that you hear, even maybe that you feel that just we let it soak in. We let it sit in us. We let it weigh us down. We let it bother us. There's no point. If you didn't change it, if you didn't cause it and you can't change it and you can't control it, let it go. You can control whether you put up with something or not. How many times, Janna, should I allow someone to, hurt my feelings or be disrespectful, before I end the relationship? One. And I don't mean they get one chance, but nope. You did me in a way I would never do you, not for me. Why not? Why are you supposed to be so forgiving in the sense of just letting someone do that to you and then they get that free pass, right? They get that free pass. You give them another chance, they're going to do it again. You know why? Because you didn't set that boundary. Set the boundary. If they're a good person and maybe by some chance that was just like something that would never happen before, never happen again. Just like, I don't know. I just wasn't myself that day. That person's going to fight to get you back in their life. And then if you decide you do want to give them another chance, they probably will never do it again. But the chances of that kind of person being the person that has fucked you over, that has treated you in a way you would never treat them, are slim to none. Ask yourself, how many times have you treated someone in the way you're being treated that's shitty? How many times have you done something to someone and said, oh my God, I didn't know it was such a big deal. I didn't know it bothered you. How many times have you done that to someone? Probably never. Now, we're not all perfect. There's going to be times that maybe you're short or there's a misunderstanding between the two of you. But I'm talking about absolute disrespect, disregard, demeaning. That's what I'm talking about. Those kind of actions. A person is going to show you how they feel about you in their true heart through actions. So stop just listening to the words. Oh my gosh, they said they loved me. Then their actions better damn well back that up. I don't give two fucks about words anymore. Well, I do, but I only care about them when the actions are there. If a person is showing me that they are in love with me, that they care for me, that I'm their best friend, that I'm their everything, and then they say it, that's when the words hold some weight. But the real weight, my friends, is in the actions. Stop settling. Stop putting up with bullshit. So this is the same thing if it's in a friendship, right? Maybe you have a really good friend, a best friend, or someone that claims to be, and they're disrespectful to you, or they don't do the things for you that you do for them, right? You give way more than they give. They don't appreciate you. Or just like I just discussed, they do things to you that you would never do to them. It's the same thing, my friends. Don't allow these kind of people in your life, because as soon as you don't put up with it and you set that boundary, guess what? They're going to bounce. They're going to bitch and moan a little bit, and they're going to be like, oh, that person's that person's just too much, too hard to handle. Good. You know what? I was way too much for most people in my life, my entire life. And I used to think that it was because I was too much, because that's what I was told. I was either too much or I wasn't enough. And I always felt like I was. And I'll be damned if I finally didn't wake up and smell the coffee and realize I am too much for the wrong person. I am way too much for the wrong person. They're not enough for me. I don't want to be everyone's cup of tea. I don't care how many friends I have. I don't really care. The right people are going to make themselves obvious, and the wrong toxic ones are also going to make themselves obvious. So make sure you got a door to exit and a door for people to walk into, right? Not everyone gets a seat at the table. Now, last week there was not an episode out because it was just a lot been going on in my life, right? I had my little son got really, really sick with influenza A. I've had home renovations that went on for a few weeks and still are. And I just couldn't quite find the time. So that's okay. That happens sometimes. But I might throw a bonus episode out coming up. Anyways, this episode's not going to be too long, kind of short. Once in any relationship you still are in your life, no matter what kind it is, if you've ever or you constantly say to yourself, I would just never treat them that way. Guys, what are you waiting for? End it. Say, fuck it. Stop thinking that you're going to wait for something better to come along. That something better is not going to come along while you're putting up with shit. You want the real deal. You want the meaningful, fulfilling relationships. It starts with you. Heal the relationship you have with yourself. Find it. Love yourself, accept yourself, approve of yourself. Set those boundaries high, my friends. And when you do that, you're not going to have any of this riffraff in your life. All right. Love you all. Talk to you soon. Have a good week.